From the first frame the preview doesn't blink. Luna is already in motion, one step ahead, one mask deeper, pushing her way into rooms that should be locked and lives that should be safe, a storm moving under calm ceilings. She has learned the rhythms of Forrester and of Los Angeles traffic and of security patrols that get lazy after midnight. She has learned which assistants overshare on social, which stylists leave passes in their jackets, which elevators open if you press and hold just long enough. It isn't bravado, it's a method dressed like chance, and it lets her slip close to Steffy with a smile, close to Finn with a wounded hush, close to Lee with a practiced daughterly nod that says I heard you and never means it. The disguises aren't theater for theater's sake. They are weapons that buy proximity, and proximity is the only currency Luna trusts after the life she lost and the father she found too late. The city whispers about her the way it once whispered about Sheila. Impossible to predict, somehow everywhere, always two moves into a plan that doesn't look like a plan until the floor drops. And the floor is about to drop. Steffy sees it first, because survival taught her to see everything. The wrong perfume on a borrowed scarf in the design office. The soft scrape of a shoe that doesn't match the model board. The elevator mirror that catches a brunette a half-inch taller than the executive assistant she's supposed to be. None of it is proof. All of it is pressure. She tells herself to center the work, to center Hayes and Kelly and the home she built with doors that lock and cameras that blink, to center Finn even when his eyes carry questions she can't cure. But centering is a luxury when a living threat is rewriting her days. So Steffy does what she's always done when the world tilts. She studies the room. She checks routes. She keeps a security detail discreet, visible enough to warn, invisible enough not to provoke. She trains herself not to react to shadows. She keeps moving. When Luna draws nearer, disguised as delivery, disguised as maintenance, disguised as the kind of face you forget in a lobby, Steffy doesn't flinch. She prepares to swing. This is self-defense, not vendetta. This is a mother refusing to let a stranger rewrite a family. Finn lives in the impossible middle, jaws clenched against three incompatible truths. His wife deserves safety, his newly acknowledged daughter deserves a chance, and his history with Sheila keeps bleeding into every day he swears will be different. Luna dead? That was the story he filed, the grief he put in a drawer labeled "Never talk about this again." Luna alive? That's a miracle sharpened into a threat, because the girl he once would have taken a bullet for has come back with bullets of her own. Sheila? She stands in doorways like regret, offering advice nobody asked for and leverage nobody should need. She knows exactly how to say father in a way that makes it sound like failure. Finn's ethics, clean lines, clear rules, aren't built for this terrain. He tells Steffy he will protect their family first, always, no matter what. He tells Lee he will not abandon his child to a war she thinks is survival. He tells himself that truth will fix this if he can find it fast enough. But truth in Los Angeles is slow. It needs time and lab results and testimony and the kind of quiet that collapses the minute a camera red light turns on. Every step he takes toward Luna looks like betrayal to somebody he loves. Every step he takes away from her feels like turning his back on a life he spent years mourning. The dilemma metastasizes. If he believes Steffy, Luna is the fuse. If he believes Luna, Steffy is the wall. And if he believes Sheila, he cannot. He will not. Except even refusing to believe her costs him, because she never leaves a conversation empty-handed. The world of Forrester is a pressure cooker on a good day. This week it's a detonator with a countdown nobody can see. Rumors move faster than memos. Fittings are rehearsals for confrontations in hallways. The preview tees up a handful of moments that all feel final. A marketing rollout that can't absorb scandal. A boardroom where silence is louder than victory. A family photo shoot that keeps getting rescheduled because coincidence and danger have started to look the same. If a single mistake happens, someone says, voice low enough to be a prayer and a warning, the truth will blow up across these offices. The truth isn't a secret everyone knows. It's the thing that will finally say whether Luna's grief curdled into cruelty or whether she's a symptom of a bigger rot. And it's inching toward the light whether anyone is ready for it or not. Every preview cut ties Luna back to that line. She moves. She adapts. She refuses to be defined by a past someone else wrote. Except the target she's stalking is Steffy, and Steffy isn't a target. She's a fighter who survived more wars than anyone should, and she isn't surrendering a single inch of ground. Lee tries to stop the narrative from turning into blood. She is a surgeon in the only way that matters. She removes what will kill and leaves what will heal. She tells Finn that boundaries aren't betrayal. She tells Luna that remorse is a verb and change is a practice and cruelty isn't a destiny. It's a decision that can be unmade. But Lee cannot will Luna into gentleness. She cannot graft ethics onto rage. The more she counsels caution, the more Luna hears condescension. The more she warns about consequences, the more Luna smiles with the confidence of someone who believes consequences are only for people without plans. You cannot change what I am, Luna says without raising her voice, a statement dressed like a shrug and meant as a declaration of war. Lee tries one more late-night intervention, one more mother-to-daughter translation of pain into purpose. It fails. Luna isn't chasing healing, she's chasing balance, and in her ledger balance looks like repayment in kind, blow for blow, fear for fear. Lee sees it, and as a mother she breaks, as a doctor she braces, as a citizen she calls security because love that refuses to name danger becomes the accessory that keeps danger alive. The disguise that matters is the one that gets Luna inside the final perimeter. It isn't clever, it's effective. She becomes a face that belongs near family, someone with access, someone expected, someone kind. It takes days because she has learned patience. It takes exactly one lapse because even a locked house has to open to friends. And then she is where she has been aiming from the first frame, within reach of Hayes, the boy who represents everything Luna lost and everything she wants Finn to admit he owes. The preview doesn't traffic in spectacle. You don't see a strobe of action beats. You see intent, you hear a whisper, you feel distance collapse. The kidnapping is the logic of her arc. She takes what matters to force the confession she believes the world refuses to make. She takes to hurt because hurt is the only pressure that ever made anyone take her seriously. It is cowardice dressed like justice, and she wears it without shame. The city blinks and a child is missing, and every character who has ever sworn they would never let this happen feels the surge of helpless rage that comes when a line you drew gets crossed anyway. Steffy goes from command to emergency in one breath. The house becomes a crime scene and a shrine. Finn goes to war with himself because the instructions wired into his bones, do not escalate, do not abandon, do not assume, are useless in the face of a clock that refuses to stop. What happens next redraws the map. There is no graphic replay. There is a before and an after, and the after is the kind of silence that never really ends. Hayes doesn't come home. The boy who crawled across floors and laughter like sunlight is gone, and the story will not blunt it, and the characters will not pretend it didn't happen. The Forrester offices fall quiet in a way that makes every footstep sound wrong. The family closes ranks and then breaks and then closes again because humans in shock move like tides. The press calls it unspeakable. People who love to hate Forrester content stop and stumble because the person they were about to mock just lost a child. And Steffy, the woman everyone thinks of as unbreakable, cracks down the middle because this isn't business. This is a life ending in her arms even if the cameras were cut and the world wasn't looking. She goes past grief into a place with no words and from there into a rage that can't be tempered by PR, friendship, or even time. This is not melodrama. This is a mother looking at a world that took her son and deciding every rule she respected yesterday just expired. Finn has to look at his reflection and decide who he is when the worst thing happens and the person accused is the person who shares his blood. If Luna is responsible, if Luna turned threat into act and can't or won't account for what she did, Finn can't hide behind filial bonds or clinical language. He has to move like the husband and father he promised to be. He finds himself face to face with the one person he swore he'd never let steer him again, Sheila. She appears with answers nobody else has and a tone that feels like comfort until you remember what it cost to accept it last time. She says she warned him. She says she can help find Luna. She says loss makes allies out of enemies. Finn hears the music in it, the way her promises curl, and still he listens because grief scrambles the rules, and because every second that passes without haze is a second that makes thinking feel like failure. Steffy watches the conversation through a window in her own mind and counts it as another betrayal even if it saves an hour, because saving an hour now won't save a life already gone. Lee's world becomes two rooms. The one where she is Finn's mother, and the one where she is the only adult left who might still be able to reason with Luna. She shreds the last of her denial and admits out loud that she cannot fix this with counsel or connection. She steps out of the role of defender and into the role of truth-teller. She calls the police without secrecy and hands them everything she has, including the timeline everyone would rather keep vague. She looks Finn in the eye and tells him to stop pretending he's choosing between people. He's choosing between right and wrong. She walks into a precinct and offers a complete statement because she has learned the most brutal lesson of parenthood. Loving a child includes protecting the world from them when they become the person you prayed they'd never be. The preview makes it clear that Hayes' death doesn't just devastate Steffy, it detonates every alliance in a 1-mile radius. Ridge doesn't posture, he acts. Reaching for every lever of power, he has to build a wall around his daughter, while he turns Forrester into a fortress and a sword. Eric, for once, lets the younger generation take the lead and becomes the quiet spine that keeps a family upright when history would rather pull them backward. Thomas sets down old rivalries because nothing they fought about belongs in the same conversation as a child's empty room. Hope is steady. She shows up with presence instead of platitudes, refusing to let grief turn into spectacle, refusing to let anyone weaponize Steffy's pain for headlines. Carter handles the legal blast radius so the family doesn't have to, drafting, filing, protecting, anticipating. Paris and Zend and RJ turn the studio lights off early and back on late and keep the work moving not because it matters more than mourning, but because it matters differently, because a company that stops gives grief nothing to lean on except itself. Luna's motive isn't a mystery show, it's a ledger. In her mind, Hayes wasn't a child. He was a symbol, the proof that Finn built a life that didn't need her, the proof that love can start over without looking back. The proof that tragedies get replaced while she sat alone stitching her life together with threads nobody else could see. It is monstrous logic. It is also the kind of logic that grows in rooms without light. The show doesn't absolve her, and it doesn't pathologize her into pity. It presents the cold arithmetic. She chose to hurt to make a point. She chose a point that breaks the world, and there isn't a redemption arc strong enough to hold that choice without collapsing. Even if someone proves she never intended this end, even if someone argues accident or panic, the story has crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Her disguises become masks you stop trying to remove. Her name becomes a headline that means danger in every room it enters. Steffy's self-defense instincts, the ones that once looked like overreaction to people who have never had to fight this hard to stay alive, turn out to be precisely calibrated to survive the fallout. She doesn't negotiate with anyone telling her to forgive on a timetable. She doesn't accept calls that begin with, "But what about?" She doesn't let the company take her grief and sell it back to the public with lens flares and hashtags. She moves between two poles, numb and volcanic, and in both places she is exacting. She demands accountability and gets it. She demands safety and builds it. She demands space and takes it. When people beg her to consider that Finn is broken in ways that don't have words yet, She nods and says she understands, and then she does what the moment requires, holding both compassion and consequence without letting either dilute the other. Finn's arc in the preview is a series of choices that won't read as brave in the recap because bravery sells better when it looks like action, and the action he has to choose is surrender. Surrendering the story he wanted. Surrendering the idea that he could keep everyone he loves safe by being the center that holds. Surrendering the belief that loving Luna can coexist with what Luna has done. His face doesn't turn into stone. It turns into someone who finally understands that love without boundaries is an instrument of harm. He puts Steffy first not as a performance, but because there is no other moral option left. He steps away from Sheila with finality, not because she doesn't have information, but because information bought at that price is a debt he can never honor without dishonoring everything else he is. He cooperates, he testifies, he advocates, he mourns, and he does it without asking for forgiveness, because forgiveness isn't a currency anyone is spending right now. The company feels the quake. Forrester has survived scandal, betrayal, illness, theft, a dozen variations on collapse, but nothing trains you for the gravity of a child's death. HR protocols feel like tissue, security plans become non-negotiable, visitor lists get shorter, glass walls get frosted. The line moves ahead because of contracts and because the work keeps hands busy when hearts are broken, but the energy changes. This isn't couture as combat sport anymore, it's craft as therapy and as vow. The family sets new rules about access, about press, about how and when the brand shows a face to the world. There's talk of a memorial that isn't designed for cameras. There's talk of stepping back farther than anyone wants to, and it isn't about optics. It's about survival. Sheila, of course, tries to make herself indispensable in the aftermath, because that's the role she wrote for herself long ago. The necessary evil who delivers when the good people can't move fast enough. But the preview underlines what fans already know: every gift she brings has strings, and every string is a noose. She reads the room wrong this time. The grief is too raw. The patience is gone. Even the people who once took her calls out of habit stop answering. She becomes background noise where she expected to be the main line. It enrages her. It frightens her. It pushes her toward choices that might write the next story entirely around her. But this week, she is not the center. The center is a family trying to breathe through the unthinkable without letting it turn them into something they won't recognize when the mirrors turn on again. And Luna? The preview doesn't promise an easy arrest or a dramatic chase that resolves in 3 acts. It promises consequences with edges and processes that grind. She is smart enough to hide, cold enough to wait, proud enough to believe she can outlast the truth. But the city isn't on her side anymore. The few sympathies she could have counted on shrivel in the heat of what she did. Any path back to humanity requires steps she has never taken, confession without excuse, surrender without posture, accountability without spin. The show doesn't tell you whether she takes them, it tells you the cost if she doesn't. The cost is permanent exile from the only narrative she ever wanted to belong to, the one where she gets to claim father and family without earning either. In one uninterrupted line, the preview locks its focus. Luna continues the unpredictable campaign, even resorting to disguises to get within inches of her target. Steffy is forced into self-defense mode, mother first, executive second, and nothing else close. Finn is pulled between wife, newly found daughter, and the gravitational pull of Sheila that never loses strength unless you cut the cord yourself. One mistake will blow the truth through Forrester like a shock wave, and that mistake arrives, brutal and irreversible, when Luna takes Hayes and the story ends in a room where no one can save him. Lee fights to reroute disaster and runs into the wall of character. Luna will not change because someone tells her to, and the part of her that delights in control swallows every warning like a dare. The fallout is as destructive as the act, leaving Steffy shattered and vengeful, Finn stripped of illusions, Lee forced to choose duty over sentiment, and the company remade into a fortress that remembers exactly why it built walls in the first Place. There is no rambling and no retreat, just the central line drawn darker with every beat. This is the week the show uses tragedy not as spectacle, but as point of no return, and every character either rises to the reality of that line or gets erased by it.